This show is brought to you by the Breeders' Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl.
As a member, I'll provide you a roadmap that you will need to create a true family or strain. Starting with a cock from one breeder and a hen from another breeder, no problem. We can help you to turn your flock of hybrid crosses or mongrels into a pure family or strain, and show you how to continually improve that strain each generation. We'll start by showing you how to select your seed fowl and how to turn that seed fowl into a high-quality foundation strain. Our proven breeding programs and specialty courses are designed to take you step by step through the breeding process. And best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. You also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders' Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl.
But see, that's because they've written the standard so that they have to be double mated.
You're kidding me. I'm looking at them, and that's what's throwing me completely off by what you're showing me and what the standard says.
Yeah, well, the standard's just wrong. The standard's a double mating scheme so that you can't produce them.
Oh, my God.
These are the hens everyone needed to be selecting for to make clean roosters. It's that no one knows what the right hen is.
So you're saying there's no way I can get there with those hens?
Yes, that's right.
Shit. Man, Brian.
Yeah, shit is right.
Oh, my God.
150 years deep shit. Yeah. How do you like them apples?
Okay, welcome to the Weekly Meetup. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to call it. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders' Academy, and this is something I'm trying. It's new. We're going to see how it goes. I'm going to try to find the right day and time to do it, something that's a little different than our normal show. Talk about some tips, some announcements that are going on, and I have some ideas for a topic, and hopefully you guys will chime in, and I'll keep going as long as you guys contribute, ask questions, send in make comments, and I can react to. I'm just looking for something to do that's fun, that I can maybe do a little more with you guys that's separate from the show. So, but I do want to get to a few announcements before we get going. I do want to welcome my new members. We've got quite a few of them. Make sure you guys start with the Start Here pages. Like I always say, there's a lot of information. Don't try to absorb it all. Try to go at your own pace, go at your own time. Check out the tracks. We have a beginner's track, an intermediate track, and a couple advanced tracks. And then while you're at it, go ahead and check out the Master's Class video series, the Members Roundtable, the Founders Program, of course, and the programs and courses that support the Founders Program in our daily articles. And we're always adding new material. I like to say that I add new material probably once a week. It's probably more than that, and then we do coaching calls. And like I tell everybody, spend a little time on the website, get to know the website, take your time, checking things out, and then write down questions. And then maybe after a month, get a hold of me. If you still have questions, let's do a coaching call. I'll make sure you get those answered. I never want you guys to be lost, confused, or frustrated. Also, hold on a second. I'm not where I'm. This ain't going to be like our normal show, so it's not going to be as scripted or planned out as we normally do. Now, you might have noticed on YouTube, because a lot of people have asked me to take pictures of my birds, maybe some videos, and put them on YouTube. So I've been trying to do a little bit more of that. When I'm feeding, pulling out my camera, do a quick short, put it on YouTube, give you guys a chance to look at my birds. I only have the black pearls and the Maximus line, but this will give you a chance to check them out. I don't, just so you guys know, don't even ask me if I sell them. I don't sell birds at all. Okay. The podcast that just came out on Monday, which is, today, is Improving Your Strain's Resistance to Disease. It's one we did about 6 months ago. We also talked about confirmation, carriage, and station in that particular episode. So go ahead and check that out. I think you're going to learn a lot about that. Some of those episodes are on YouTube, but they're also on all the platforms that you would normally listen to your podcasts. Also, this Friday for the live show, we're going to be talking about the detriments of defects. Can we create a strain from birds with faults? And, I was kind of thinking about it and I'm kind of hoping we can drum up a conversation and maybe cover a little bit of this, maybe talk to you guys a little bit. So I want to get your feedback. Maybe, I have a pretty good outline. We're going to have a really good conversation between Frank and I. But if you guys can come on and have a conversation with me, give me an idea where you guys are, maybe I can improve my outline even more and we can have even a better show on Friday. And then for my members on the back end after the show, after the live show, go to the members roundtable on the Breeders' Academy. We're going to be talking about the power of selection, how to improve the ability to select the proper brood fowl so that you can move your strain forward. And that's going to be a fun one. I always enjoy selection. So, and then also for the members, make sure if you haven't already to check out the episode of the Masters Class video we just did, which was the first interview. And it's with Brian Reeder. And it's been really cool because I'm really enjoying how the members are responding to it and how much they're enjoying it. And I'm getting a lot of messages on the Breeders' Academy membership group page on the website. I'm getting emails. The response is awesome. I was hoping you guys were going to enjoy it, learn from it, and absorb it because, with this interview, even with the interview that I did with Brian, we went kind of, I wouldn't say extremely deep into the genetics of color, but we went deeper than most people would expect and maybe enjoy. And so, and I've noticed from the members that they've been telling me they've been watching it multiple times and are learning something new every time they do it, which I really appreciate. And then one of my members, which I thought was kind of cool, was he said, I really like the videos with Tony Seville and Don Schreider, but I have to admit the lessons with Brian Reeder is a game changer. And it's funny because this is the interview that I did with him, which was a 5-hour interview, and I knocked it down to about 2.5, and then Nancy and I added our little intro and outro on the ends of it, and then I'm going to peel off a number of topics and make them into their own episode, which I think you guys are going to enjoy even more. We're going to peel off the resistance to disease, the breeding of whites and their genetics, the breeding of silver ducklings and how to turn the golden ducklings into silver ducklings. That would probably be the biggest revelation, I think, and I've noticed that from the members too, that they really enjoyed that one because it really opened their eyes. And I know it opened my eyes about numerous things. Brian told me a lot of things I already knew, but he told me some things that I wasn't sure about, which he cleared up. And there was quite a few things I learned new, which I really appreciate because I'm always looking to learn. And then once I get those done, I'll be editing the other audios that Nancy and I did with Brian. And that was an 8-hour call that we turned into basically 4 separate episodes. We're going to be talking about the 3 base alleles. We're going to be talking about color patterns and modifiers. And then we're going to dig deep into diluters, intensifiers, and pattern genes. And I know all this sounds complicated, but what I liked about Brian, because this is the way I work, is he simplified it in a way that you guys can understand it, because that was what was important to me. It's not about just teaching genetics and getting you all confused and frustrated. Is presenting it in a way that you guys are going to learn from it, that you guys can actually use it. And he was all for it, and I was pleased the way it all turned out. And then in the 3rd episode, we're going to take all that information, we're going to show you how to combine it into something where you can actually create your own varieties. And in the 4th episode, he's going to answer a lot of the questions my members had that wrote down for me to ask him during the show. So we're going to dive into that. And then there's going to be a number of other things that I'm just waiting for Brian. There's times when he's kind of busy with his business, but he knows that I'm ready to go. And as soon as he's ready, then we're going to get together and do some more. And I think there's others. I'm gonna have to ask him what it was, but I remember we talked about doing another show on polygenics and quantitative inheritance. I know he wanted to dive into epigenetics, so I wanted to talk to him about our three-legged stool. And then he talked about improving the strain's resistance to disease, which he has a lot of knowledge about, and then dig deeper into hybridization, domestication, and then I'm sure he's going to want to dive more into the origins of the chickens, which he did a little bit on the interview, but I think I might have interrupted him just a little bit, so maybe I'm not sure he finished it, but I talked to him. I said, "Man, just listening to you talk about this would alone would make its own great episode." And he's like, "Yeah, I think we could do that." So I think I think he likes that idea of doing something. And then once I get Brian Reeder's stuff done, which I'm not sure I'll ever be done, as long as he's willing to come on, I'm going to do a show. I enjoy talking with Brian. I'm learning so much, and as much as he wants to come on, or as much as I can get him on, I will. Okay. And then after I'm done with what I have here with Brian, I'm going to finish up the standard. Most of the standard is done, but I'm going to finish up the standard. And then I'm going to combine what I'm learning from Brian, all the information I'm getting from Brian, and I'm going to combine that with the standard. So not only do you have the standard, but you're able to breed them and select them and understand the genetic factors of those colors as well. So I'm looking forward to it, because I was going to finish the standard. And once I started talking with Brian, we got, especially the first interview I did with him, and I started talking to him about, the genetic factors of everything. I'm like, and how to use it to improve your fowl. Then I was like, okay, I'm going to back off. I'm going to stop on the standard for now, and I'm going to pick up where I left off, and then combine Brian stuff, and then the standard will be a much better. It'll be a whole different standard than what you see normally, like in the American Poultry, was it the American Poultry Association Standard Perfection? All those. This is going to have a little bit. You're going to have the standard. You're going to understand what makes up the bird, but you're also going to know some of the tricks of breeding those colors too. That's my goal. And then for my members, I just set up the date for stage 4 of the Founders Program. We're going to finish up that recording on the 30th of this month, and then I'll get that edited out real quick, get that out to the members, give you a chance to check it over, write down your questions, and then we'll do a live show with all you guys so that you can ask your questions, and we'll have another video to go with it, and that'll be good too. Let's see, next week's podcast will be What If Your Chickens Get Sick? That's a really good segment. Okay, let me see what we have there. Okay, Cross B, how you doing? All right. Roseanne from Oklahoma. How you guys doing? Okay, so also, now I know some of you are already here watching, and maybe some of you guys will watch this later. I'm really trying to find the best day and time to do something like this. Because not only do I want to let you guys know what's going on, especially my members, but I would like to do a topic. Maybe we can talk about something. But if I don't get the participation, or I don't get the viewers, then we're going to have to rethink it. This is something new I'm trying. I'm hoping it works out. So it's going to be separate from the live show. So let me know if this is not the best day and time. Let me know when is the best day and time, and maybe I'll try then. Okay. So the interview with Brian Reeder is gold. I really appreciate that, Rolfie. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. That's what I'm hearing. Everybody's really enjoying it. So what I want to talk about today, and hopefully you guys can chime in. I want to hear what you guys think. I can see that a lot of my members are in the chat already. Hopefully there's other people too. And I want to hear what everybody thinks about this. But this is something that I posted on YouTube. And this is something I like to do. I like to take an idea, and I put it as a question on YouTube, and then watch you guys respond. And I got to say, it's awesome, because you guys, the members especially, you guys do a really good job. It shows me that we're actually making progress by the way you guys are answering it. And I'm really enjoying that. And I just sit back. I don't really contribute too much on those, but it kind of tells me where you guys are, and what we need to do. Maybe we need to change the way we're doing things. Maybe we're not teaching it properly, whatever. And then seeing how the members are not only reacting, but also see how people who aren't members are reacting. and then maybe find ways to get them to, I don't know, join the Breeders' Academy, and so we can teach you too. I always tell people, just for those that aren't members yet, when I put those banners with the question on YouTube and not YouTube, I'm sorry, Facebook, watch how the members are answering it, and then you'll see the kind of things you're going to be learning inside the Breeders' Academy. Okay, and that's a good indication of what you're going to get. So yeah, send in your comments, send in your questions, and let's see if we can work through this. Like I said, Frank and I are going to cover this again on Friday. We're going to go much deeper. We're going to make it more of a conversation. I don't want to go that deep today. I don't want to really work off the outline that Frank and I are going to do, but I would like to talk about this topic with you guys, and let's see if we can make I don't know, maybe a show out of it. Hey, Robbie, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. Okay, so you guys have any questions yet? Okay. Any comments you want to make on that particular topic? Let's get the ball rolling, huh? Okay, so the question is, can we create a strain from birds with faults? And what I see is people, maybe they know it, maybe they don't know it, maybe they don't understand it, but they are breeding birds with faults. And I don't think they understand the consequences of doing that. And I will say this though, that the question can be subjective. Okay, for some they're going to say yes, for some absolutely not. But there is a way to breed a bird with a fault and move through it. But there's also genetic factors you have to consider too, because some faults are more, Brian uses a word deleterious, which I think it's a great word actually. I usually use a word like what do I use? I can't even think now. My mind just went blank on that. I use a different word than Brian, but Brian's more potent. I think I might have wrote it down here. Let me see. Oh man, what do I say that's different than Brian? Because I really like the way he puts that. No, I didn't write it down. I'm gonna have to put that down on here. Okay. Oh, detrimental. That's right. So I look at defects as detrimental to the strain, and Brian says it's deleterious. And I like that word better, actually. I'm gonna have to implement it in my speech, in my vocabulary. So let's see what we got. Faults are worth. What faults aren't worth working with? I'm not sure of the question, Kiku. What faults aren't worth working with? Okay, maybe this is what he's trying to ask me. Now, what I'm talking about, for the most part, are defects. So if we look at the bird, there's some things a bird should have, but there's obvious things the birds shouldn't have. Okay, defects are, like I say, detrimental to the strain, in that once a defect takes hold in your strain, it's hard to get it out. I've seen people, like I went and helped someone on a farm one time, trying to help him select his birds. And as soon as I walked on the farm, I mean, he has brood pens all the way around and everything, and then he has teepees in the middle. And I just was talking to him as we were walking in, and we walked right through the middle into the center of the yard where the teepees were. And as I was talking to him, I looked down and I saw the bird with duck toe. And this particular one gets by people quite a bit. And I went, oh, that's interesting. He goes, what? I go, well, that bird has duck toe. So I start walking around the birds on the teepee, and they all had duck toe. And I said, ooh, this is starting to worry me a little bit. So I said, let me see your brood fowl. And everything had duck toe. He just didn't know that was a big deal, or I can't remember. Either he didn't know that it was a big deal, or he didn't even know he had it. And some defects get by you. You just don't know they're there. You get yard blind. I've got a banner, and let me pull it up here real quick to give you an idea. And on the website, we show you all these defects. We show you all the genetic factors. We show you how to fix them. It's not just enough to know that they exist. It's to know what to do with them. And I know I have 80 defects on here. I think some of my members said, every time I try to count it, I get a different number. I don't know why, I just do. But my members say I have 88 defects on there, and we cover those on the Breeders' Academy. Okay. And so those kind of things get by people because they just don't understand those are actually defects, that they're a bigger deal than they are, that they're actually a pretty big deal. So I was like, oh man, I mean, I looked at this brood fowl and everything had duck tone. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I mean, there is a way to work through it, but you have to have some birds that don't have the defect. Okay. And we'll talk about that in a second. So defects are defects are the main reason. I don't know if that answers Kiku's question. Let's see. Okay, and then Crosby was saying I kicked out a pullet with white in the earlobe from my black-breasted red. What is that, BL? Black red. I don't know what that is. Line this past week. Okay, I'm not sure what those initials are exactly. Here's the thing too, and I'll say this right at the bat, that although some defects need to be eliminated right away, and some can be worked through. Okay. Oh shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. I was trying to go around it so much I've totally dodged it. Some defects are a little more, like I say, detrimental than others, and you can work through. But let's put it this way: if you look over your yard and you have some that don't have the defect, then don't mess with it. Just cull the defect and just breed to the birds without the defect. Okay. But I'm seeing a lot of times that I go through some people's yards, and because they didn't know what to look for or what to do about it, or even whether it was a big deal, they were all carrying the same defect. Then you got a problem. That's probably a bigger problem than you would ever know. So, the blue lace. Okay. Yeah. The blue lace red wyandottes. Those are awesome birds. And I don't know, Crosby, if you noticed it, we kind of talked about those on with Brian Reeder on the interview. And I'm trying to remember if he talked about it on the other episodes too. We'll see. What do you do? This is Dennis. What do you do if you can't find a defect? Good. I'm going to say that there's no such thing as a perfect bird. But so, every bird, I mean, I can go in anybody's yard. I don't care how good of a breeder you are, and I can find faults in your yard. You can hand me any bird, I can show you where it needs to be improved. Okay. I will say that, but that doesn't mean that every bird has a defect. Okay. So if you can't find a defect on a bird, good deal. There's a certain criteria I use when I start selecting. I'll have the bird on the ground. A lot of times I'll line my birds up and do drop pins, compare them all, kind of walk around them, see if there's any defects that I notice right away as I'm walking around them. As soon as I see a defect, that bird comes right out of the line. I replace it with another one. Once I'm satisfied, I got a bunch of birds. All the birds that I'm looking at are free of the defects just from looking at them as I'm walking around. Then I pick them up. And the first thing I notice when I pick them up is the breastbone. I look for any defects or any deformities that the breastbone may have. It could just be deep. It could be, not long. It may not be long enough. I mean, they could have all different issues. It may not have the muscle around the breastbone like it should. I always look for a nice football type body that fits nicely in the hand. So I fill that right away. And then the first thing I do is I pick it up. I look at straight in the face, and I start looking at the eyes. I start looking at the face, the beak. I turn around and make sure the head's all real good. Then I turn the bird towards me. I look at the back, make sure the back has it's broad, flat, tapers nicely to the tail. And then I just spread the wings, start looking at the wings, look at the tail, look over the feet. I have a certain criteria I use when I'm looking over birds. But anytime I pick up a bird, whether I'm examining them or thinking about using them as brood fowl, anytime I pick on a bird, whether I'm moving it or whatever, I'm examining it. I'm checking it out head to toe. I'm looking for parasites, whatever. Okay. And so whenever I see a defect, I call it right away. If you have plenty of birds and you can find birds without the defect, those are the ones I move with. But if that's all you have and they all have the defect, then you're going to have to figure out a way to work around it. Okay. Yeah, go check if he's talking Cross B. If you're talking about Brian's, it's the latest Masters class video. So go there. Okay. Dennis saying, I totally agree with Kenny. I believe I've really got lucky on my culling. Yeah. I'm a big culler. I mean, I don't, why would, okay. Frank said something recently that I don't remember if it was on the latest show, or it was a podcast I was editing, but why would you hold on to a bird that has a fault? Why would you feed a bird with a fault? Okay. If I want top-notch birds on my yard. I would not waste my time with a bird that doesn't have the right type, conformation, has a defect, sick, doesn't represent its breed. Why hold on to a bird that's lacking, doesn't have the right traits, so I cull right away. I'm a hard culler, I am. But and I notice that too. When I walk around my yard and I see a bird that has a fault, that one bird gets my attention to the point where that's all I'm thinking about as I'm walking around my yard. And I believe that's so true too, is when someone comes on your yard to look at your birds, that's the bird that's going to get their attention. That's the first impression they're going to have of your birds, and that's the lasting impression when they leave your yard. And so anytime I cull that bird, I have to say that my whole yard looks good after that. You know what I mean? So I stay on top of that. And every now and then one sneaks by. And it takes Nancy to come out there and go, Kenny, look at this. I'm going, son of a gun, where'd that come from? Like a bird, like a pullet that I've been raising. She's almost a year old and she has duck toe. I mean, sometimes they get by you. But I can guarantee you one thing, that kind of bird will never make it to my brood pen, because that's when I'll look it over, take it apart, and really check it out. And I will make sure that bird's right before I add it to my breeding program. Dennis says, color is going to be my nemesis. I used to think I do think color is important in many ways. I mean, it shows your skill and ability as a breeder. It shows the refinedness of the family. It does show the purity of the family sometimes, but colors last. That's one thing that Brian and I both agreed with, was that color was not number one. That color was last. That it's after talking to Brian, I knew, how do I say this? After talking to Brian, I now know that color is a little easier to fix than I thought it was. Although I did think just about any color could be fixed, I did believe that very few breeders want to do what it takes actually to do it. Okay, because it can be kind of tough. It's a matter of breeding a lot of birds, culling a lot of birds, okay, testing a lot of birds, finding the few that are going in the right direction, then breeding those. And so when you're trying to improve one type of color, let's say like you're trying to get the red out of the silver ducklings or out of the gold ducklings to make them silver again, locating the handful that are still pure for silver can be tough. Sometimes just because they're full silver doesn't mean there's not, that recessive's not hanging around in there. So finding the right ones, testing them, and not only finding the right ones that are silver, but then testing those and see if they produce all silvers, because then they're pure, and then culling the ones that aren't, or getting rid of them. So I find this with sick chickens or yards that have a lot of sickness in them. Breeders aren't willing to do what it takes to get to a place where the yard is, well, and you're not dealing with sickness, because it does take a lot of culling. So they have to fight it all the time. They have to get medications. Well, perfecting a color, or sometimes perfecting a certain type of trait, is the same way. Because if you're not willing to do what it takes to get there, you're just not going to get there, Oh, shoot, I hit the wrong button. Oh, here we go. So willing to learn. I appreciate that, Dennis. Okay. So there was a comment on, I don't know, it was a while ago actually, and it was on Facebook, I believe, too. And they were going back and forth on whether they would breed a bird with crooked toes. And some of them said they would never do it. It's a detriment to the strain. And some said they had no problem with it, that it was not genetic, that it was the incubator and the brooder. And understand this, you know, there's a lot of things the chickens get, like crooked breastbone, crooked toes, that the environment can cause it, but it's the genetics that allows it to happen. So whenever you have a brooder that has chicks with crooked toes, then if there's crooked toes, and there's a way to tell, but if I see a crooked toe, I'll call it, because you never know 100% whether it's genetic. But like I said, it's the genetics that allows it to happen usually. So if there's some that has crooked toes, but some don't, then chances are it wasn't the environment. Okay. But if they do, let's say if you have crooked toes and some don't, usually it's one family will have it, the other family would don't. Well, that's another sign that it's genetic. So I always say, don't take the chance, because you never know. And what happens if you have a crooked toe and you breed to it, if you're matching it to a bird without the crooked toe, that one without the crooked toe covers up for the one that does. Okay. That dominant feature, or that dominant factor, actually hides the recessive. So what happens is you don't find out whether that crooked toe is actually genetic, which I think most of the time it is. You won't find out for 3 or 4 generations when you start concentrating the genes, when you start inbreeding them more and more. The only way you wouldn't find out, and I don't recommend this is not the way I work, is if you just keep bringing in new blood. You just still, hybrid vigor, recombinating the genes, keep adding new blood. Those are the things that are going to hide those kind of things. But you're not creating anything. You're not making a family. So I really don't think that's the way to go. If that's the way you want to do it, and I think that's the biggest reason why some people do add new blood each year or every other year or every few years, because it's the recombination of genes from the outside line covering up for the faults of, let's say, your birds. To me, they're still there. You're not really completely hiding everything. It's just not part of the phenotype. Now it's part of the genotype, and it's going to express itself later down the road. So if someone buys birds from you, they're going to breed them. It's going to show up. And this is another reason why people don't like to sell brother and sister, because any faults their birds have will show up really quickly, when they start breeding them. So if, let's say, you buy a brother and sister from a breeder and you take them home and breed them, any faults that are there, you're going to find out right away. And those breeders don't want that. So they're either going to sell you crosses, or they're going to give you birds that are unrelated so that you are crossing them, so that they do hide those faults. So beware of that. So I admire, either there are some breeders that don't know that and will sell you in a brother and sister, and then find out later that for them that was a mistake, or they're really good breeders and have faith and confidence in their bloodline that they can give you a brother and sister knowing that you're going to get good birds. So, see where are we at here. You know what? Let me do this. I don't know why I'm doing it that way. This is much easier. Okay. Would you say that when the environment starts getting hotter and humid, do you think that encourages chicks to become hardy, or encourage a stronger immunity? I don't think so. Now, the environment has a way, when we look at like epigenetics, the environment has a way of expressing genes that we may not know were there, and it can actually turn off genes that we would have normally got that we're not going to get now. Okay. Now, as far as encouraging health or improving resistance to disease, stronger immunity because of the weather, I don't think so. I don't see the connection. Okay. So I'm always telling people, especially when it comes to defects, try to start with the best foul possible. And this is why I don't like getting birds in the mail, because you don't have control of what they send you. They could be sending you a sick bird. They can send you a bird with defects, and either the breeder didn't know about that defect, didn't understand that defect, or didn't think it was a big deal. But you're going to find out how quick it is a big deal, or you're going to find out how big a deal that is in a few years. So I always encourage everybody, go to their farm, select the birds yourself, look them over, educate yourself on what makes a proper bird, educate yourself on the proper type and conformation of that bird, what represents the bird, and then educate yourself on the defects that exist. Okay. And then from there, you can actually make a proper selection. And I don't care what the names are. I don't care what they say they are. I don't care what the relationship they are with the hens. I'm looking for some of us, we're starting with the cock. With some of us, we're starting with the hen. So if I'm starting with the cock, then I'm trying to find the cock that has all the traits that I'm looking for, has the criteria I'm looking for, and then I'll match the hen to them. Okay, I want to make sure the hen matches the cock, and then I move forward. Like I said, I don't care the name of the birds. I don't care the relationship of the birds. I know that if I get two birds that are free of defects, that are healthy, have the proper traits, I can move forward. I can actually create a strain from that. And then I can work with whatever pops up. Because as you know, or a lot of my members know, that all you can start with is the phenotype. Whatever the phenotype is showing you, that's what you can work with. It's not until as you're breeding them that the genotype will express variations where you could either select them or cull them at that point. And rarely are those variations that pop up are huge to a point where it changes the strain overnight. Anytime you see big changes, it's because you're dealing with birds that has a lot of bloodline in them. What I like to call mongrels. Okay. And when you're dealing with a cock that's a mongrel and a hen that's a mongrel, you're going to see a lot of genetic diversity that's going to pop up that you're going to have to weed through. Okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing exactly. I mean, this is why the Founders Program is built the way it is, because the first three phases, or the first three stages of the first phase, can't talk all of a sudden, is a cleanup process. Because of that, because that's what we've always had to deal with. We've always had to deal with breeders that were crossing things, adding new blood. They didn't have anything pure. And so we had to work through it. And a lot of times we find out how pure they are, but just from the first breeding alone. So if you breed them, you get them home and you breed them, and you see huge variation from the chicks right out of the shell, even the chicks are different colors, then you got a problem. You know right away that you're going to have to breed them a certain way. You're going to have to do some selection. You have to do some deciding and decide which traits are important to you and which aren't. And you're going to have to do some heavy selection. So I always tell people, hatch as many chicks as you can manage and afford so that you have that selection. Then you can move forward in a particular direction. Okay. I hope I'm not bouncing all over the place. I'm just trying to react to what you guys are saying and maybe peel off a couple things off my outline. Dennis, yeah. Contact me inside the Breeders Academy, and let's schedule a coaching call. Getting one lately with Frank and I has been a little tough because our schedules aren't exactly meeting up. We always make sure that we can meet up on Fridays for the show, and because that's been not the problem, but like Masters Class videos. I could do them myself if I had to, but I like doing them with Frank because I like taking all the informations on the Breeders Academy, let's say like the Founders Program. Each phase, each stage has all the information in there. All I do is take the information out of there, make an outline out of it, make sure all the information's there that you guys need, of course, and then Frank and I will make a conversation out of it so that you understand it fully. And so Frank and I will get together and we'll do that. Now, that sometimes can be tough to find time where our schedules line up exactly, and so that's been a little tough getting us together for the coaching call at the same time. Now when you ask for the coaching call, let me know you want Frank there too, and remember, we're lining up 3 schedules. Okay, you might have to be somewhat flexible when it comes to lining up that schedule, setting that schedule. So let me know where you're at. Let me know where you live, so that I know the time zone, and then I'll contact Frank and see if we can make something, get something together, and then we'll do a coaching call, because I do enjoy those. So definitely. Let's see. So Kiku's saying, okay, I fully understand what's happening, because these seafowl were mongrels and created mongrels. I'm being hated for it, but I'd prefer to have that family pure, or have that pure family. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate that, Dennis. Yeah, that's the thing. If we're going to do a coaching call where you're working with Frank and me, then yeah, you're going to have to be a little bit flexible. Now, I try to do, because I have a pretty busy week trying to get everything done that I need to get done. So what I usually do is I designate Wednesdays as much as possible for coaching calls. And if that day does not work for you, and I've done coaching calls right up to 11 o'clock at night. Okay. So I'll do what I have to do. I designate that day for coaching calls. I usually start at 10 o'clock, and I'll go as late as I have to make sure I get them all in. But if that day doesn't work for you, then we'll see what we can do. I mean, I can try to fit it in the best I can. Okay. So any questions about defects and the breeding of defects, and whether, how do you create a family that has defects? I need your guys' participation. Otherwise, I'm just going to cut it short, because I don't want to go too heavy into my outline, because I want to use that for Friday. It's a really good outline. And I'd like to talk to Frank about it, or discuss it with him, and then get your feedback too. So, but I will say this. Now, I don't know if I want to go into that yet or not. Okay, so I'm going to go into it a little bit, and depending on how the conversation goes, I may cut it off at an hour. What's the one defect? This is Kiku. What's the one? Let's put that up. What's the one defect you would recommend all of us to avoid? Okay, that's a good question. That's going to lead me right into probably what I was going to talk about anyways. So the defects you want to avoid mostly are what we call monogenic traits. Now, monogenic traits is one gene, one trait. One trait, one gene. Okay, so we're looking at traits that are usually dominant or recessive, and it's usually the recessive traits that are where the defects are come from. Most defects are recessive, I guess you could say, and they're the hardest to get rid of, because they are recessive. Because even when they're not being expressed, because if it's a dominant trait, the dominant trait is what's going to express itself. It's just that you don't know if it's pure unless you test it. That dominant trait could be hiding the recessive, and a lot of times it is. And a lot of people have families that are hiding a lot of recessive traits, and some of those are defects. And like I said, it's one of the reasons people like crossing them. And if people are really good and they know what to cross them to, grays seem to be the ones for when it comes, especially when it comes to color. When you can get a bird expressing a lot of dominant traits, it can hide a lot of genes, a lot of defects. So it's the recessive traits, the monogenic, the recessive traits that are most dangerous. So we're looking at, I made a list actually, so this is good. Okay. Rye-tail's one. Okay. Now understand too, some traits can be caused by multiple things, but I still think genetics has a big factor in it. Rye-tail is one. Crooked toes, knock knees, bow-leggedness, split wing, split tail, crooked beak, beetle brow, side sprigs. That's just a few. Okay. I have to pull up. I wish I would have finished that list. I was actually working on it, because there's a lot. Like I said, there's 88 defects that are on the list. Not all of them are recessive. But rye-tail is an interesting one because I think it is a genetic factor, but it's environment. Like a roost that's too low, where the rooster's always having to pull his tail to one side, can actually cause a tail to start go awry, and then it stays there. Diseases like gumburl, a neurological disease, can make the tail. A lot of times when you see the tail laying all the way over, that's a neurological problem. Okay, that's not exactly a recessive genetic defect. That's actually a health disease, virus. It's a neurological disease. Okay, so it could be environmental. It can be health, and it can be genetic. But always, if there is a genetic factor in any of those, I would actually treat it as genetic. Crooked toes, same thing, could be environment. I actually think crooked toes, everything I've read, everything I've studied, everything that I checked out, that shows that crooked toes are similar to crooked breastbone, in that crooked toes can be caused by the environment, which is the temperature of the incubator or the litter of the brooder. I mean, a lot of things can cause the toes to start to curl. But if the same environment, if there's other chicks being hatched or raised in the same environment and they're not getting the crooked toes, then it was a genetic defect that particular bird that has the crooked toes expressed. Okay, for it to be the environment, it has to affect all the birds that are in that environment. Okay, crooked breastbone is interesting in that it's a recessive, but it's also polygenic, and it can be caused by the environment, in that the roost can cause it, but it's the genetics that allows it to happen. Okay, but it also could be nutrition, could be nutritional. So if the birds are not getting the proper nutrition and not getting the proper calcium, vitamin D, phosphorus, the whole bit, because without vitamin D and phosphorus, the calcium, they're not going to absorb the calcium. So it's like that. I should write a thing on calcium, the three-legged stool, because you got to make sure your vitamin D, phosphorus, and calcium are all the same. What's up? You can join me if you want.
But hey, do you have a?
There's a chair.
Do you have? I need to be able to hear you.
Well, what?
What side do you want me on?
It don't matter. No, I'm not. I don't have a.
Okay, that's right. I won't be.
No, we're not talking to anybody on the screen.
I know. I just need to talk to.
You're gonna be that. She's.
Hey, everybody! I'm gonna short.
You want to lift your? You want to lift your chair?
Okay.
It looks funny that way. That's you just got off work. Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So where was I? We're talking about defects that are the most dangerous, and I'm kind of all over the place actually. But crooked breastbone can be nutrition. It can be the roost. It can be genetic. But I actually think all those things cause it, but it's the genetics that allows it to happen. Now, here's another thing too, and we talked about that before, where the crooked breastbone, if you're thinking it's nutrition, then it would affect all your birds. So if it's only affecting some of the birds, then we know right away it's genetic. Okay. So I can put I can have some pretty sharp roost out there. But if it's only affecting a few birds, then I know it's genetic. Okay. So what else was there? Any other questions?
Yeah, Robbie's asking if I had fun at work today.
Now, so how do I say this? Monogenic traits, dominant or recessive defects, it's either they have it or they don't. So when they express it, you got to cull it. Otherwise, you're going to perpetuate it. And before you know it, once you start matching two birds carrying the same recessive trait, in this case, a defect, you're going to perpetuate that trait. All the offspring are going to carry it. And if you're not on top of that, then before you know it, your whole farm has it, and you don't know what to do about it. There's no way to fix it. Okay. Now, polygenic defects are interesting in that you don't want any of them, but they're easier to fix over time. So it's a matter of, and understand this too when it comes to polygenic defects. This includes polygenics are traits that include anything related to form and function. Okay. There's only some of them. Let's see, what would not be form and function? No, it's usually always form and function. Always relate to polygenic traits. Polygenic traits are multi-gene traits. So each trait is determined by multiple genes. Okay. And the only way to improve them, and then because it's multiple genes, you'll know it's polygenic. I'm trying to keep this all straight in my head. I'm all over the place because I'm trying to not go too deep in some of this and still move forward. Okay. So Paul, you know you're dealing with a polygenic trait, and I'm sure my members will just jump in here and just tell you what I'm going to say. But whenever you see variation, you see a trait and there's variation in that trait all over your yard, then right away we know we're dealing with a multi-gene trait. We're dealing with a polygenic trait. Okay. And it always is something that has to do with form and function. Because of that variation, if we can select to the intensity that we're looking for, whether it's the lowest intensity of that particular trait or the highest intensity, over time we can improve it. But anytime we're just random breeding, just breeding whatever, or we try to breed to extremes, so we're breeding to one that is one extreme of that trait versus the other, we never get there. Okay, we always have to breed to the highest intensity of that trait, and over time it improves, and never improves overnight. And it never improves if you add new blood. Anytime you add new blood, you're just recombinating the genes. Plus, you could be adding more recessives, more defects that you didn't even know were there. So that's always risky. Okay, so I always say that if we're dealing with a polygenic defect, we can work through it. We can get there. It just takes a little time, and you got to be patient. Monogenic traits either have it or they don't. You cull. If they have it, you cull it. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, we've got one here from Matter John. Matt, are you a Mad Hatter? Okay. So thoughts on birds showing ducto in 20-degree and below weather, not in the warm weather?
I don't think the weather has anything to do with ducto.
I don't think so either.
No. It's a serious defect. Now, understand this too, because this gets everybody. I had a member just recently do a coaching call with me, and he was showing pictures of his birds. And he was asking, is this a ducto? Is this a ducto? And this is a ducto. Okay. The prop toe can be in multiple different places on the back of the foot. Okay. Let me just say this right off the bat. A ducto is where you have the foot and the toe, instead of being out here, is laying right alongside the foot. That's a ducto. That's a serious defect. You can't fix that. There's no selecting your way out of it or anything. The only thing you can do is, if that's all you have is ducto, or that bird. Well, I'm going to say this first. If there's a bird that has a ducto and you really think it's that good and you want to breed to it, I mean, there's a way to do it, but I would always push people to breed to the ones that don't have ducto, because it's a hard one to work your way through. And I had one out there with ducto, and I almost bred to it, and I almost did what I'm going to tell you to do if this is what you have to do. But I didn't have to do, so I went ahead and called it. It was a beautiful bird other than that. Is if I have one with ducto, then I have to breed it to a bird that has no ducto, and never back cross that bird ever again. So it has one job, is to get it going, get rid of it. You're going to maybe not see it in the immediate offspring, because the mother, let's say it's the mother this time that doesn't have the ducto, you're not going to see it in the offspring because she's going to cover up for it. She's going to hide it. Okay. But now they're going to start concentrating the genes, because the family is going to get closer and closer as you go. You're going to start seeing it. And anytime you see it, you got to cull it, because you will. You're going to see a percentage of them. Little by little, it'll go away, but understand this too. Once you get that in there, it never goes away. It's always going to be hiding in there, waiting to come out. So those two birds carry the same recessive trait. That one's going to pop right out. So I would say try not to breed the ducto if you can. If you have to, make sure the bird doesn't have ducto that you're breeding it to. Okay, so now the prop toe, a lot of people confuse ducto in that, let's say you have the foot and the toe is coming out from the side of the foot. And we see that every now and then. It's not going like that, but it's on the side of the foot. That's just that's a gene. I mean, it's just making that prop toe just happens to be in the wrong place. Can you work behind the foot, center with the in direct line with the center of the toe, flat on the ground like it should? Yeah, you just got to keep breeding the birds that are the two birds on your farm that have the best the best toes, and eventually you can get there. But those aren't duck toe. So if that's what you're talking about, what was he saying?
He says they showed up in the winter, but they didn't have it in the warm.
Yeah, it's not the temperature. Now, what?
Can they not have duck toe and develop it? I mean,
I've seen that where okay. I've seen that where the chicks in the quail-sized birds weren't showing the duck toe. I mean, look at that one hen you found a while back where I was feeding it, and you came and said, "Look at the duck toe." That bird was almost a year old when I ran into the duck toe, and I didn't see it. So, I mean, I have to do more research on that. Can it be a genetic trigger? I kind of think it can, because it's happened to other people, and I think it's happened to me, because it's hard for me to believe that I would have that hen that long and not notice it. Because anytime I'm moving birds around, that bird got in that cage somehow. I put it in there. I never just grab birds and move them around. If I have a bird and I get it in my hand, I'm looking it over every time. It would have to be a fire going on for me to just toss a bird into a pen and run. Okay, I just don't work like that. So that bird had to express that duck toe later. So is it a genetic trigger? Well, indications say it is. I have to do a little more research. Maybe I can even ask Brian Reeder. He might have some information on that. Could it be genetic trigger? I'll find out for you, because it could. Maybe it could.
Yeah, I need to write that down. That's our
question. Write that down, and then next time I talk to Brian, maybe he has some insight on that. That'd be a good one. But again, I'm going to stand. Okay, here's another good reason why not to breed to young birds, because by the time they're 2 years old, they should express, if that duck toe is a genetic trigger, I'd be very surprised if she didn't have it at 2 years, but then she showed it at 4. I have never seen that. So if it didn't show it as a baby chick, and then you look at it just before you putting it in the pen, could it be a genetic trigger then at that age? Maybe. But I don't think it's the weather. I don't think it's the weather. I don't think the weather has anything to do with that.
Let me ask you something, because I want you to clarify polygenic defects. You were talking about breeding to the highest intensity. Can you give me an example of what you're talking about? A defect that you're trying to get rid of that's a polygenic trait defect.
This could be considered a defect in that maybe you don't want that kind of station. Let's talk about station of leg. Okay. So let's say I'm looking for a medium-high station. Okay. But I have a number of birds on my farm that are really low. Okay. So I start looking for the ones on the farm that are the higher of the rest. So I start breeding to those. If I have to, I create a subline. I start breeding to those, and I start improving the station. So every time they produce offspring, some of the offspring from those birds are going to be a little higher station than their parents. That's always the indication of whether you're improving or whether your strain's getting better, is if the offspring are better than the parents. And it could be overall, it could be one trait, it could be, whatever. So if I'm measuring one trait and I'm looking for offspring that are better than the parents, then I know I'm moving in the right direction. Okay, but it's tricky, because if I'm improving station over time, and little by little I am getting there, and you will, because they'll show variation, there's no way to get around it. You can go overboard. You can get to the point when they're getting too high. So you get them to right where you want them, and then it's a balancing act of keeping them there, because they're always going to want to be pulled and pushed. So that would be a good example of polygenic traits. Okay. Now, as far as a defect like these are all, I'll name them off in a second, but these are all form and function traits, which are polygenic traits, multi-gene traits. So you're looking at type, poor conformation of body, poor carriage, poor station, crooked breastbone, which all, I don't know if I mentioned that crooked breastbone, because it can be nutrition, could be, no, let's go back on that. I don't want to get sidetracked. Squirrel tail, is a polygenic trait. People make the mistake of trying to breed to the extreme low tail to think they're going to get something in the middle. It doesn't work that way. That's not how polygenics works. Okay. Poor production, poor performance, poor temperament, poor broodiness. Those are all defects of polygenics. Now, I was going to say crooked breastbone. Whenever you have crooked breastbone, that's a bigger indication of something bigger. I mean, something more like poor bone density. So when we're seeing a crooked breastbone, that's showing that there's something bigger going on throughout the bird. And that means his skeletal system is flawed. That's just so that's why I say people go, oh, I don't care if the breastbone's crooked. It's just whatever. It's just caused by the roost. No, not only was it not, it may have been caused by the roost, but it's the genetics allowed to happen. But that's the simple version of it. There's something bigger going on, and that is there's something going on with the rest of the skeleton. So we could have I can't talk all of a sudden. Brittle bones. We could have all kinds of issues. So stay away from that. Hold on, Nancy. If I can't read it and understand it,
I was just going to ask him to put it in English so that we could read it and understand it.
Yeah, I have to. Because if I can't read it, then I don't know if it's a word that shouldn't be on there.
So TM, ask it or put your statement in
Is there any
English
others?
if you can.
Wow, he's got it.
And welcome from Vietnam.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them here. Any others?
Yeah, first one down below.
I'm gonna if he doesn't stop it, I'm gonna ban him. If I see one more pop up, I'm banning him.
I'm sorry.
Well,
my goodness, Kenny, you've been on here an hour.
I know.
What happened to staying to 20 minutes?
That show isn't this show anymore. I don't want to do that show anymore.
What show is that?
The Monday announcements. I can run through that in 5 seconds. It's not worth setting up for that. Any others?
No, other than I think, Robbie, you have a constant blanket if your 80-pound dog likes to sit on your lap. There you go. Enjoy.
Okay. So,
did you explain the difference between scroll back up a little bit. Like give an example of a monogenic trait and a polygenic trait?
Yeah, I just did, didn't I? Yeah. Monogenic traits are dominant recessive, one gene, one trait. You have two choices. You either cull it or select it. Recessives must be culled. Polygenics is a multi-gene trait. One trait equals multiple genes. Mm-hmm. Quantitative inheritance, which is measurable. Select for the highest intensity. Takes many years to improve. Subtle changes over time. Let me write that down like that. I just added to it. So there, you just saw you just made me read off my outline.
He makes good outlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make great articles when I'm done with them too. So anything else?
Nobody else is saying anything else. We've got a few people on here though. That's great. Good to see you. How many?
Oh wow, more than I thought that would show. Okay, why I have all you guys here. Let me know. I mean, except for Friday, of course, and Wednesday, and Saturday and Sunday.
What do you think is going on Wednesday?
No, I mean those are my busy days. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, maybe Thursday. No, Monday. I think Monday is the only day I can do this.
No, you gotta do them on Monday.
Yeah.
It sets off the week. You got
okay. Okay. This guy's going bye-bye.
Okay, so
bye-bye.
Buckeye has something. If you have bred a strain for years, is the color throwback possible?
Everybody wants to blame things on throwbacks. I look at it differently. So if you have a dominant color and it throws a recessive one, sometimes it just happens to be there. Who knows when they got in there? Can you call it a throwback? I don't like to call them throwbacks. I just think a recessive was expressed because you matched it with another bird that actually has the same recessive trait. Okay. Now, I do believe by matching certain birds, they're going to produce off colors. You know, it's just but I wouldn't call that throwbacks. It's good to see you, Buckeye Craig. Hadn't seen him in a while. That's cool.
Somebody else had a question up here. I don't know if you.
I'm very leery to call a lot of things throwbacks or atavisms. They're gonna, especially when it comes to color, because the colors they're getting. I hear that all the time when people talk about blues. Oh, it's a throwback to this. Man, blues throw all kinds of colors. They throw everything because, for one thing,
That's why I like them.
blues are incomplete dominant. Now, for you domestic chicken people out there, when I'm talking about blues, you guys are probably thinking lavender. Lavender is a completely different color than some of us game fowl breeders who are breeding blues. We don't even breed lavenders, but so that's different. Lavender is a recessive gene, where blue is actually a incomplete dominant gene. The only colors that come out of blues that are pure is if you get like pure black, pure white, splash. Those can be homozygous. Well, they could. The only ones we know right away by looking at them would be the splash. Now, whites and blacks can hide a lot of things under them, and you don't know whether they're pure unless you test mate them. I know I'm rambling.
I don't know if you answered this question, but I thought it was interesting. Can the gender color plumage be purified?
Yeah.
How do you do that? You want to know?
That'll take too long.
Never mind. You have to join the Breeders Academy and then have a coaching call with Kenny, and then you'll find out.
That's one of the colors I'm going to have Brian cover, but you can. They don't have to be double mated. That's the problem. A lot of birds, and that was one of some of you members probably, if you've listened to Brian's interview, because we talk about double mating and how that all came out to be and why the standard matches up birds that need to be double mated and why. And that was a big revelation that was a shocker and a pisser too. It pissed me off too. So,
my goodness.
Anything else?
Crosby is tackling the erminettes.
God, that shocked me. Cool. Awesome. I think those are cool birds. I'd like to have a American game erminet. Yeah. Your answer makes more sense than a throwback. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that, Buckeye Craig. Yeah. A lot of things get blamed on throwbacks, and most of the time I don't see them as throwbacks. I look at them, most of the time I look at them as simple recessives.
I forget.
Matter of fact, we're gonna do, and I'll come up with a better explanation for you, is that we're gonna do a show. Me and Frank talk about quite a bit on throwbacks, atavisms, mutations. What was the other one? We're gonna cover. Oh, and chimras. We're gonna take that and make that one episode. I just don't know if it's going to be in the front end or for the members on the back end, for the Breeders Academy members. That's the problem I have a lot, is coming up with really good topics with really good information. It's like I want to share them on the front end, but it turns out that when I get them all done, I get the outline all done, I'm like, nope, this is for the back. This is for the members. This can become a master's class video. So that's my issue. So what ends up happening for the front end is Frank and I want to give really good information, and we try to. But there's small nuggets in a bigger conversation. That's what the show ends up being on Friday. Whereas what we do on the back end's a lot more information. Absolutely. What's this?
So Crosby is saying he needs work on the complete black and the complete white. I need to individual feather for the erminettes. So he's working.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Well, understand that it's a codominant trait. Okay. So you're going to get some that are all black and all white. Then you're going to get some with black and white feathers. Now, understand this too, that when you look at the feathers, the black feathers have to be black and the white feathers have to be white. They can't have both colors on the same feather for it to be a complete dominant trait. Because if it's a feather that has black and white on it, then you're just talking about splash. That's not erminet, that's not codominant. But it takes time to, I don't know if you'll ever perfect them to the point when they're 100% erminet all the time. You might get some variation of like the black from time to time and the white, and you might get different intensities of the erminet. But they're a fun breed, and I hope they make it. I hope they do well. Like I said, I'd love to make an American game that was an erminet.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Anything else?
That is all, folks.
Okay. So I guess we're going to wrap it up then. Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I feel so weird. I'm usually over there. Everything looks foreign over here.
Should I tell him what you're doing tomorrow?
What are we doing tomorrow? No.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody needs to know that. Okay. So we'll see you guys. I don't know. Are we going to try to do something on Thursday?
What are we supposed to do on Thursday?
Well, we might go. It's your day off. We might go do something. Do we want to do a live on Thursday? We're not sure yet.
I'm not sure if I have it off.
Oh, you don't? You're not even sure you have it off?
I forgot.
Oh,
I tried to get tomorrow off.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I said no.
Okay, so I'm not going to commit to that. So until then, we'll meet you guys on Friday, and we'll meet our members in the back end on the Breeders' Academy. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, guys. Let's hopefully this is a good day and time for Monday, and we'll come on. We'll just kind of chat. We'll do this, little informal little show.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Frank said he'll join us when he can. I always tell Frank's always welcome to join me. I always say, because we talk all day long. And I said, hey, because he was talking to me earlier. I go, hey, if you want to come on, you're more welcome. He goes, oh, I'm going to the farm. I have to feed the chickens. I go, oh, okay. So, but maybe I'll get him on here.
Yeah, guys, and you members, listen to the interview with Brian Reeder a lot, because it'll help you to understand it even better. And there might be something that you missed the first 2,000 times that you watched it. So
I don't know if I told you. I told them that the response we're getting from that is awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, they're really learning from it, and they're really enjoying it, and that's good. Like I'm trying to remember who said this. Might have been Dennis. I'm not sure. He said he really liked the videos with Tony and Don, but he had to admit that the lessons with Brian Reeder is a game changer.
Yeah, it totally can be.
Yeah, because I've always kept the genetics very simple, very usable, very practical. Okay, always stuck to the colors that were the most common, but I think Brian Reeder is going to take this to the next level for sure. He already has. Just with that interview that him and I did. Wait till you see the other episodes, and then the episodes that we're going to be doing here pretty soon. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up, and we'll see you guys on Friday. And I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Have a good week.